There we go. We have the recording in place. Let me start us by opening us with a prayer. Creator God, thank you for people who care about your creation. Thank you for all those who are here to learn more and for the talents and training and wisdom that Tricia is going to pass along. Be with all of those who are dealing with the disasters across the country, especially the flooding, and be with those who have lost so many in the flooding in Texas. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, well, thanks everyone for being here. And Tricia, thank you for joining us. Let me start off by introducing tonight's speaker. Tricia Tall is someone who I've known for several years and really enjoy interacting with every chance we get. Tricia is an ordained Presbyterian minister and is the A.B. Rhodes Professor Emerita of Hebrew Bible at Louisville Presbyterian Seminary and author of the 2-volume Smith and Helwise commentary on Isaiah. But she's gone on to apply her theological expertise to creation care, writing Inhabiting Eden, Christians, the Bible, and the Ecological Crisis. And I really hope that you've had a chance to participate in some of the Bible studies that have been going on using the 2024 and to 25 PCUSA Horizons Bible study that she wrote. Let justice flow down, God's call to care for neighbors and all creation. PEC just recently concluded their study, and it really is a must-read for anyone concerned about creation care. Also, Tricia is a climate reality presenter, a Green Faith Fellow, a Rewiring America electric coach, a coordinating council member for Third Act Faith, and co-founder of God's Green Resourceful Earth, a faith-based environmental ministry in Kisumu, Kenya, and is the 2016 recipient of our PEC William Gibson Eco Justice Award. Tricia lives in a net zero home in Henryville, Indiana with her spouse, the Reverend Don Summerfield. She hopes to retire someday and better enjoy their 8 and still counting grandchildren. I've had the opportunity to see their homes, spent time with Tricia and Don, and it's just a wonderful place. And yeah, you may still be working, but you've got a wonderful surrounding all around you. So anyway, with all the bad news we've been hearing lately tonight, I'm looking forward to hearing more of the good news of what we can do to help preserve creation. So with that, Tricia, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Mindy, for inviting me to do this. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you all see it? Okay.
Just fine.
All right. Let me get myself set up here. I unfortunately, I'm gonna need to not look at you all while I'm talking. So yell at me if you need anything. Just a couple of weeks ago, my 9-year-old granddaughter informed me that wind turbines are ugly and they kill birds. I asked her where she got this information, and she said she read it in a book from her school library in Florida. Of course, when you're 9 years old and see something written in a book, you tend to assume that it's true because it looks authoritative. We talked about this, about how today's wind turbines, when properly placed, are far down the list of things in the environment that kill birds, behind outdoor cats, glass windows, pesticide, oil spills, plastic waste, habitat loss, and climate change. We also talked about the aesthetics of wind turbines versus those of oil fields. But what I took away from the conversation is the insidiousness of the decisions that led to disinformation placed in a school library. It renewed in me an urgency to combat such disinformation, not by censoring libraries, but by modeling informed earth care for people around me, including my kids and grandkids. This modeling is incredibly multidimensional, and many of us here do this daily in diverse ways, from our banking and investing and voting decisions to our diets, our vacation plans, and the ways we speak out. In this webinar, I want to concentrate on one slice of our climate actions, the energy systems we put into place in our own homes. Not only do these affect our direct contributions to climate change, but they also serve to influence the people around us. About 90%, 9/10 of the world's excess carbon dioxide contributing to climate change comes from just one thing, the burning of fossil fuels for energy. Burning coal, petroleum, and natural gas is by far the most important impediment to stopping climate change. I don't want to get deep into talking about the science tonight because the information is out there abundantly, but for anyone who is interested in reading a brief explanation in plain English, there's one available on my website at this link, which is also on the resource page for this webinar that's on the PEC website. You can use this as a refresher or as inspiration for talking to other people about what climate change is. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, consists of thousands of climate scientists worldwide who assess data and report on climate impacts. They are the world's most trusted authority on climate. In 2018, they announced that to avert the worst outcomes, the world must reduce carbon emissions by 45% by the year 2030 and stop emitting greenhouse gases altogether by 2050. What this means is we need to find every way we can to stop burning the coal, oil, and gas that cause carbon pollution. When we drive our gas cars, we are burning petroleum. In fact, it's not just the burning happening under our hoods. I don't know of a single part of the supply chain, from the oil fields to the refineries to the transport, that doesn't involve burning more fossil fuels even before we combust them in our cars. Similarly, when we pay to heat our homes with natural gas, we are burning fossil fuels mined hundreds of miles away through environmentally destructive practices and piped all that distance with considerable waste and adding indoor pollution that we and our children are breathing. It is in our power to change all of this. I'm not going to say that it's easy. There is no template that fits all households in every part of the country. We each need intelligence and wisdom and some patience to do it, but it can be done. And in my opinion, the advantages far outweigh the roadblocks. A while back, we used to hear a lot about energy efficiency, changing light bulbs, insulating homes, getting better gas mileage, maybe even installing tankless water heaters. But in the past 5 or 10 years, there's a new concept that goes straight to the source, and that is electrify everything. When I first heard of it, I thought, okay, sure, but why and how? That's what I want to talk about this evening. When we make our homes and transportation fully electric, we prepare them for the transition to renewable energy on our electric grids. No one can do this part for us. We have to do it in our own buildings that we ourselves own. If we also decide to produce rooftop solar energy, we can reduce our home fossil fuel dependence all the way to zero without waiting for the grid. I want to talk first just a little bit about why it matters to electrify, and second, about how we plan for it, then about how we can pay for it, give a brief mention of our congregational buildings, and then I hope to leave a little time for discussion and questions. I'd love to talk about EVs too, so if you want, ask me about those. I won't mention them much in the course of this discussion. Why should we electrify? As I'll show in a moment, our household decisions are very significant. Not only can electrification cut out pollution from mining and burning, but it can save us considerable money, add to our comfort, and prepare us, our buildings, and our transportation for the renewable energy future. And since fossil fuels not only cause global warming, but also inevitably cause air pollution wherever they are burned, they are an immediate health threat to people living close by factories, power plants, and highways, especially children. The renewable industry stimulates job growth as well. According to a U.S. Department of Energy report last August, Clean energy jobs have been growing at more than twice the rate of employment overall. This is happening in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. As of 2024, the U.S. has gone from being the 14th largest solar producer in the world to being the third, primarily because of a bill that was passed in 2022 that I'm going to talk about later in the webinar. It may be easy to think that the little bit of fossil fuel burning that I do in my home and car are minuscule next to the big industries, the military, the airlines, and so on. But we can actually make collectively a big difference. As households, we have a lot of effect on the amount of dirty or clean energy we as a country will use, since 32% of our carbon footprint is in our homes, and another 10% goes to household transportation. Nearly half, 42% of the carbon load we are personally responsible for comes from energy choices that we ourselves control. Industries and government and neighbors can influence this, but ultimately these decisions belong to us. If all U.S. residents cut out burning fossil fuel in our homes and cars, even if no other institution or industry did anything at all, we would meet our 2030 climate goals. In fact, however, businesses and state and local governments are setting ambitious goals. So even if only half of U.S. citizens responded to this message, the U.S.'s carbon load would reduce substantially. And there is good news out there. As of March of this year, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, more than 46% of global energy was coming from renewable sources, with solar energy contributing the most, followed by hydroelectric and wind. No matter what decisions the current U.S. administration makes, it can discourage, but it cannot stop this growth. No one else but ourselves determines how we source our power at home. And there are just one or two things that we can do that will make the biggest differences. By far, the largest uses right now of carbon polluting fossil fuels in homes are for space heating and water heating. A couple of wise investments will change that. We can electrify anything that runs on fossil fuels, not just our home heating systems and water heaters, the big ones, but also our clothes drying, our cooking, our transportation, even our yard and garden maintenance. Many years ago, many Americans moved away from electric heating and cooking because they were inefficient, but that is no longer the case. Today's electric appliances are the most efficient purchases we can make. But there is even more that we can do. With the help of an energy audit, including a blower door test to find out how and how much our home leaks air, we can seal and insulate our homes to make them airtight. We can install LED light bulbs everywhere if we haven't already. We can upgrade other major appliances to Energy Star ones. And when we do so, we can resist the temptation to increase our load by putting that old, inefficient refrigerator in the garage for the occasional six-pack. There are numerous small efficiencies we can introduce into our systems and our habits. Here is one good way to break the process down into logical steps. The first step is to have a professional energy auditor come to examine your home and recommend improvements. A good one will include a blower door test to find out how much heat or cooling is leaking through the cracks in your house. Finding a qualified local energy auditor is harder than it should be, but I have listed here and on the resource page a number of ways you might be able to find one. You might start with the Building Performance Institute, which certifies auditors. Your local utility might also be a good starting place. You can also do an informal audit yourself. This website describing what to look for is also on the resource page. After you know the basics about your home's efficiency, the most important next step is to seal and insulate. According to EPA estimates, homeowners can save an average of 15% on heating and cooling costs just by air sealing their homes and adding insulation in walls, attics, crawl spaces, and basements. Don and I began working 20 years ago on our 100-year-old house in downtown Jeffersonville, Indiana. We began with an energy audit and then installed insulation in the walls and attic, and it made a huge difference. We also sealed all the windows and door cracks, replaced a few of the windows, and updated the water heater and fridge. Doing all this and some other things, we reduced our energy bills by more than half. Step 3, when you can, install a heat pump. Since home heating is by far the largest energy use, the most important next step is to replace your furnace and air conditioner with a heat pump, which does both. This is an expensive replacement, but it's well worth the trouble. And as I'll discuss later, there are some government and utility incentives available for doing this. Heat pumps are efficient because instead of making heat, they move it. In fact, few of us know that we've been living with heat pumps all our lives because that is what our refrigerators are, pumping heat out of the fridge and into our kitchens. A heat pump uses refrigerant to capture heat even from cold air and either pumps that heat into or out of our houses, depending on the season. My biggest recommendation on this is to make a plan before it's an emergency. We've all heard stories, maybe it's even happened to us, of furnaces going out in the dead of winter or ACs in the height of summer. And we call the first HVAC company we can find to replace the appliance as quickly as possible without considering better options. A better plan is to locate a few home heating and air professionals who advertise their expertise on heat pumps right on their webpage and have them come and give an estimate. So you know ahead of time what you will do and have an idea of who to call. Just by way of example, here's the HVAC company that we used. It doesn't put heat pumps on a big banner, and it still installs and services furnaces, but it does put heat pump technology several times right on its homepage. Now, we need to know that there are two kinds of heat pumps: air source, like what these pictures show, and ground source, from pipes that go down into the ground, what people sometimes call geothermal. When Dawn and I built our current home in 2019, the one that Mark was talking about earlier, we chose a closed loop ground source system. There are various configurations, but ours is vertical, as you can see on the upper left. Water is pumped through the pipes in the ground beside the house. This is more expensive to install than air source heat pumps, but it's far more efficient because no matter what temperature the water is when it leaves the house, it re-enters at the constant ground temperature of 50 degrees, which the heat pump can then boost by 20 degrees upon re-entry, rather than starting with the extremely variable air temperature as low as 10 degrees or as high as 100. These are the ground source pipes in the sidewall of our basement. With a heat pump, you don't need natural gas at all. Our house is all electric. This highly efficient variable speed heat pump provides both our air conditioning and our hot water, which is stored in this 85-gallon space capsule looking smart storage tank. This thing is said to save 80% on hot water energy use. And our rural electric co-op gave us a $1,500 rebate for installing the ground source heat pump. And we got a federal tax credit, which I'll talk about in a moment. Our heat in the winter could have come from that same appliance, but we opted instead for a second heat pump on the same system. It sends water warmed by the ground source loop to a series of pipes embedded in concrete under our floors. Normally, this would be something to plan when you're building a house. That's all ground source, also called geothermal, also called water to water and water to air. The other type is air source. This does not require digging up your yard, and it's still a worthwhile upgrade. There are two kinds of air source heat pumps. On the left, you see a system that uses the ducts that are already in your house, replacing the furnace and air conditioner with a unit similar to the one I showed you a moment ago. On the right is a model that doesn't need air ducts because it goes directly through the walls to the rooms, a ductless mini split. You've probably seen them even if you didn't know what they were. This one is really useful, especially if you have basement rooms or additions that your central system doesn't serve, or doesn't serve well. My daughter and son-in-law nearly doubled their comfortable living space by adding a ductless mini split to their finished basement. Here is a Consumer Reports article that gives a lot of information about heat pumps and their efficiency. If you're like me and really like Consumer Reports, this may be helpful. I put this also on the resource list. So step 1, get an energy audit. Step 2, weatherize your home. Step 3, get a heat pump for HVAC. And step 4, or step 3.5 perhaps, a heat pump water heater. After air heating, water heater uses the most power. So heat pumps do both. Some heat pumps, like ours, do both air and water heating. Like HVAC heat pump water heaters are far more efficient than other water heaters. Again, this is something you want to plan ahead for, so you aren't caught flat-footed when your water heater suddenly springs a leak. Here are some other ways to improve your home beyond those bigger impact items. Induction stoves and cooktops are electric, but are far, far more responsive and faster than traditional electric and even faster than gas. Plus, they don't heat up the kitchen and emit methane into your home and are safer for cooking with children, since the cooktop itself isn't what heats up. Instead, it turns your cooking pot or pan into the heat source by use of magnets. Heat pump clothes dryers are so new they weren't available when we built our home 6 years ago. They run on 120 volts instead of 240, and they don't need to be ducted outside. They are the easiest replacement for an old gas dryer. I've mentioned the other things mostly, and I'll talk in a moment about solar. If you are planning to build a new home, as we did, you will want to approach all this somewhat differently, because there's so much you can do in the floor plan of the house itself to make it so efficient that you can actually generate as much energy as you use. We decided that we wanted to try going all the way to net zero energy. That is, using no more energy on average than we could produce through solar panels. We came across this company in Coopeville, Washington. The owner, Ted Clifton, specializes in net zero homes. Ted recommends following 12 steps to net zero in building homes. These include building orientation, symbol design, window orientation, thermal mass, tight building envelope, balanced insulation, balanced ventilation, heating and cooling equipment, domestic hot water, efficient appliances, efficient lighting, and finally, alternative energy. Some of these are going to be more obvious to you than others. And the solar panels are the last thing on the list because the best size of the system depends on the energy saving from all these other factors. On his homepage, he includes a video with a detailed explanation of all of these steps, and I've included it on the resource page. Our home turned out to look like this. I can't walk through it with you tonight, but it does follow all those 12 steps. And what we found was that not only is it terrifically efficient enough to run off a solar array that also powers an electric car and a plug-in hybrid, but it can weather the frequent power outages our rural electric co-op is subject to, even in winter, because it continues to collect power from the sun in the daytime and stores it in our 2 Tesla batteries and retains a steady temperature at night. There are all kinds of companies trying to sell and lease solar panels, so I want to make sure you know what to look for. Buy, don't lease, your solar array from a NABCEP certified company. That's North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. Our energy has stayed pretty consistent year by year, generating about 10.5 megawatt hours and using between 10.4 and 11, depending on how many family members are living with us at any given year. But now, with a second electric vehicle and a daughter who set up an Airstream on our land, this year we've added another 8 panels. It's not necessary for everyone to have their own solar array. If the electric utility moves to renewable energy, and if we electrify our homes, that is enough to keep at least our buildings at zero emissions. But if we want to control our electricity costs, we might consider buying a solar system from a certified installer, or at least buying into community solar if it's available in your area. Here's a little tip. The 30% tax credits that are still available until the end of this year covered not only the solar panels, battery, and inverter, and the geothermal heat pump and everything in the HVAC system connected to it, but also the carport and breezeway, since they were built to house the panels. A garage doesn't qualify, but a new carport does. Now, I want to talk about the help we still have available to pay for these renovations. You may have heard of the Inflation Reduction Act from 2022. It was the largest environmental legislation the U.S. Congress has ever enacted, with lots of measures for industry and infrastructure, and a lot of help for low-income communities and communities that have been left poor as coal mining and power plants have shut down. But the part of it that's relevant to our individual lives right now has to do with lots of help for home energy and electrification. Many of us have been waiting with bated breath to find out what the Republican majority would do to this bill, among others, and we have just begun to find out. That so-called big, beautiful budget reconciliation bill Congress just passed last week annuls much of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. The federal tax credits for solar, geothermal, and other renewable innovations will end on December 31st. And the tax credits for electric vehicles will end even sooner on September 30th. That means that our best bet is to do what we can this year. In fact, if you're ready to move forward, and if the tax credits matter to you, I recommend considering a home equity line of credit so you can get your purchases and installations done before the end of 2025. Here are the federal tax credits that are still available to directly reduce our taxes. The ones for installing rooftop solar and buying electric cars have been around for a long time, but the IRA covered so many more things. Through a system called direct pay, even low-income people who don't owe taxes and nonprofits such as religious congregations could take advantage of these. And to be honest, I'm not sure what the fate of direct pay is now. But also, to be honest, these technologies are so cost-effective that they're worthwhile for congregations, even without federal incentives. You'll see here that solar, battery storage, and geothermal all continue to receive the 30% tax credit that they have for years. The tax credit for new electric vehicles continues at $7,500, though primarily for U.S. manufacturers, and one was added for used vehicles. Other tax credits were added as well, each of them at 30% up to an annual maximum for heat pumps for air conditioning, heating and water heaters, EV charger installation, and electric panel upgrades as needed to accommodate all these, and weatherization of homes through in ceiling and insulation. Not on this list, but also a tax credit is of up to $150 is a credit toward home energy audit. Let me emphasize once again that unless something changes dramatically, which in this administration is possible, but this is not likely, these tax credits will not be available after this year. The tax forms for 2025 don't seem to be online yet, but the one to watch for is Form 5695 for residential energy credits. But there is more. The Inflation Reduction Act also put millions of dollars into the hands of state governments. These rebates were applied for state by state, and some states that got their applications in early already have their rebate systems going. Indiana, surprisingly, is one of them. But all were approved and distributed before President Biden left office. So far, we haven't seen the Trump administration trying to claw back this money. In addition to federal credits and state rebates, some communities also have rebates from their utilities, like our rural electric co-op that gave us $1,500 for geothermal heat pumps. Each state's program is different, but this is the general list of rebates the IRA recommended. Some more expensive items, for instance, heat pumps for heating, air, and water heating, can get both federal tax credits and state rebates in some states. You can see here all the other rebates that may be available to you. Here is a website for finding out what is available or coming in your state. Assuming there is no clawback, these should be around for several years. You'll see that they mention two kinds of assistance. Whoops, sorry. Here and her. Here is home electrification and appliances rebate, and her is home efficiency rebates. Let me show you what you can see further down on this web page. This map shows what's happening so far. Some few states in purple have programs already available. In yellow, they're partially available. And in blue, they have the money, but are still working out how to offer it. If you click on these states, you get more details. And the most valuable part of this webpage is down below here, which has links to each state program offering the details. This is where to go to find out more. If the state rebates are already operating, you can find out how to take advantage of them. And you'll notice that there are two states that don't offer them. South Dakota, which never bothered to put in an application, and Idaho, which applied but then decided not to offer them. And here is an additional help that I recommend exploring. Rewiring America is a nonprofit working to make all these energy improvements available and accessible. This, what you're seeing here is the project planner they offer online for personalizing your plan and finding out what tax credits and rebates you might want to use. Besides the project planner, they also have a savings calculator with a search tool for finding contractors in your area and a lot of other resources besides. In addition, the Desire website, DSIRE, lists all the other incentives available from local governments, utilities, and so on. And if you like podcasts, I recommend this one from Climate One about home electrification and rewiring America. Now, just a few words about congregations. This is a photo of the rooftop of First Presbyterian Church in Jeffersonville, Indiana. The guy in the middle there is my spouse, the Reverend Don Summerfield, who was pastor there at the time. After energy audits and a bunch of weatherization measures, they put their first round of solar panels up in 2015 with some help from a DOE grant. Excuse me, just a second. The members were so pleased with it that 2 years later, in 2017, they installed a second round of solar panels. I'll name 4 things that we learned in the course of this. First, in those 2 years between 2015 and 2017, the cost of solar had gone down by 33%, and it's gone down a lot more since then. Second, the congregation members paid for this second installation 100% without a grant, without any funds coming from the church's reserves. And in fact, as Don put it, this was so much easier of a sell than capital fund drives for other purposes because it did not add to the annual maintenance budget of the church. In fact, it subtracted from it and made the church so much more affordable for the next generation. And third, of course, it was done on principle without any tax credits. And fourth, installing solar panels influenced members and people in the neighborhood to see the church differently as a green congregation and inspired others to consider doing the same thing. So that's basically the whole thing I have to say tonight. I would want to say that I can help you with your projects if you would like as an electric coach, or you can go to a much more higher authority than me, Dave Penscover at Go Electric Colorado, who can provide virtual help. If you contact him, let him know that I'm the one who sent you. So now I think we have time for questions and discussion. So I'm going to turn off my share. And there we go.
I think, oh, there's Mark. Okay.
That's great, Trisha. I think, yeah, you've provided a lot of great materials there, and it's really as you say, going to be very valuable for people to be watching what's going on in their states and what comes online. Fingers crossed that that money remains available.
Yeah.
What experience do you have with people who are looking to do retrofits of their homes with heat pumps?
Um, I haven't had a whole lot of personal experience with retrofits. I do know that they can be done in some creative ways. For instance, my cousin Tara in Denver has an older home that uses water heaters. What is this? What are water radiators?
Hmm.
And those are already a kind of they're not in floor, they're in the room, but they're already ready to be to connect with the heat pump. And the important, I think the really critical thing, and this applies to furnaces as well as heat pumps, and that is to make sure that your system is appropriately sized for your home and its needs. And that's why it's really important to, if you're going to be doing weatherization, if at all possible, to do that first.
Mhm.
And then to make sure that the installer that you use, and not all there are a lot of installers who just aren't going to move over to heat pump technology because I don't know why. They're lazy. I don't know why. Um, but you want to make sure that the one that you talk to is informed about heat pumps and is enthusiastic about them. In our case, it wasn't even a question that we were going to use any other technology. And our HVAC installer knew that and has been very, very helpful, not only in the installation itself, but also in making sure that we understood what was going on at certain points along the way when we had questions about it, making sure that it's well serviced and so on. So there are probably in any community there, you're going to be able to find somebody who can be a partner to you in HVAC exploration.
Great, thanks. David Kepley.
Yeah,
Hi, David.
Trish, good to see you again.
Good to
Always
see
wonderful
you.
to hear you talk about this subject of which you have such great passion. Thank you for a wonderful slide presentation. I started to take notes, but then you said several times, hey, this data will all be on a resource page. Please send us that resource page.
Yeah, I'm going to send Mindy the PDF of the slides so
Excellent.
you'll have
That's
that
wonderful.
available too. So
Yeah, that's
so
excellent.
you'll know what to do with the resource page that just has a bunch of websites on it. So
Yeah.
between the slides the websites, you can get a long way without having to go back and listen to this whole presentation again.
And one follow-on question, Trish. Well, how can the first thing that people are going to think, at least I do anyway, is, oh my God, what's this going to cost? So can you give us some ballparks of some of the things you've recommended? Like what's the cost? What should we expect to pay for an energy audit? What should we expect to pay for a heat pump? What should we expect to pay for a heat pump water heater? Just ballpark numbers. And I know every community will have different pricing because I live in a high cost of living area and you might not. So, but just ballpark so we can kind of wrap our heads around this.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. And I don't know, it was many years ago that we had our last energy audit. Does anybody else know? Have you had an energy audit recently? And do you know what the cost was? I'm thinking that it could be about $500.
Oh, okay.
Chris, do you have an idea, or are you just raising your hand for something else?
Yeah, well, to
Yeah.
answer that direct question, some states, I know New York State, you can get energy audits for free. They have a program that does exactly that, and I'm sure New York is not alone in that. So it's almost like a no-brainer. And even though I built my house in 72, energy efficient, and actually been zero fossil footprint since 93, but when I put solar panels on my roof, I even had the energy audit because I had built it myself and did my own insulation, and it had settled. So the energy audit showed me where that settling was, and I just kind of topped it off, that insulation. So even if you have uh, a energy efficient home, depending on how old it is, it's still worth an energy audit.
Yeah. And it will turn up things that will end up saving obviously a lot of money as you go along.
Exactly.
Heat pumps are more expensive than other technologies. So that's why I hope that if you're thinking about it, that you'll make sure you can get some money back from the government for doing them. But they too, and this is hard for me to conceive of, not a numbers person, but somehow they are several times more energy efficient, not just a little bit more, but several times more energy efficient than furnaces. So, and the reason for this is that they are moving heat rather than generating it. So
It's
the
80%
upfront
more
cost is
efficient.
high, but the overall cost over the course of years is going to be well worth it. Sorry, Chris, what were you gonna say?
I was just pointing out it's 80% more efficient.
80%?
It's pretty amazing because, as you say, it's not really generating heat, it's just moving heat. It's capturing heat from the outside, moving it in, or vice versa.
Mhm. When my son-in-law installed the mini split this year, I think it was in the range of about $5,000 just
Okay.
for that one unit,
Okay.
which is both heating and cooling, like
Okay.
air source. As I said before, the geothermal is, on a much greater scale of expense than air source, and the mini split is really a very quick and easy fix. Yes,
Trish,
David.
when it comes to the heat pump, I know that when we first bought our very first home, oh gosh, 35 years ago, whatever, we had a heat pump. And the one thing I could guarantee was I would never felt comfortable. If you walked up to
Yeah.
the register and it's got cool air coming out. Now, maybe it's slightly warmer than the outside, but it's like, well, I'll never do that again. Hopefully the new ones are better.
They are, yeah, yeah. It's been a while since, I think they even recommended, not getting them in certain areas of the country because they just wouldn't handle the cold. But yeah, they have improved dramatically. I think it's along the lines of getting one of those old electric stoves, with the coils versus getting a induction cooktop. It's very, very different scale of technology.
Okay.
Yeah. So come visit me, David, and come in when it's 10 degrees and or when it's 0, and you'll find yeah, I'm sure you'll be warm.
I see Ruth is raising her hand.
Okay,
Yeah,
Ruth.
we've have air heat pumps both in our main home here, and then we just did it in a condo we have in another city. And there's been so much improved technology, and just make sure that you're getting a heat pump that is designed for, places where it gets cold, so that it has the technology to do that. The other thing that we did is they suggested this as a possibility. There is a coil, like a heat resistant coil, on the heat pump that you can have there as well. And that will just kick in on those like below 0 days. And the heat pump's having a little hard getting up to a comfortable temperature. Now that does raise your energy use, so that's not a cheap option to do, but it is it makes you comfortable. So we've never had to worry, and we've had pretty cold weather. I'm in Kansas, but it's been down in the teens here, and it's been really fun. I want to say it's more comfortable to have a heat pump than the traditional gas furnace because it's a constant heat or a constant cool. it doesn't go on and off all the time. It's just, it's quiet, it's constant, it's comfortable. But do get the cold wet, I'm not sure of the name of it, but kind of the cold weather technology. And if you're concerned, have a coil, kind of like a space heater coil, that they can insert on top, and that'll just help you be very comfortable.
We found when we were building our house that, having a designer that was in Washington State and hadn't lived in muggy southern Indiana, there were some things that our builder had to adapt from his plans because he knew, from his own experience, the builder knew, who was a very efficient builder, but he said building our house with the design that we had was like going to school and us paying the tuition. But he sometimes had to adapt some things that the original designer had included because of the differences in climate between Washington and Indiana. So yeah, be sure you go to somebody who knows their local area.
Yeah, indeed. We have a couple more questions. Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. Actually, my question was irrelevant, so I've removed my hand, but it's good to see you, Trisha.
Irrelevant. Okay.
And I am so excited you're going to be in Black Mountain with Rebecca in September. Is that right?
Yeah, at the end of September. We're going to find out tomorrow what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing there. But yes, it's First Presbyterian Church of Black Mountain. For any of you who are in the surrounding area, they're having a 1-year commemoration of Hurricane Helene and talking about the effects of climate change there and elsewhere. And Rebecca Barnes and I are going to be there together, so I'm excited about it too. And always happy to be in Montreat and Black Mountain.
That's going to be great. Now, in fact, I'm going to keep my eye on what y'all have planned and what our plans are, because we're going to be right around the corner from there doing a church mission trip to doing rebuilding from Helene. And that's sort of the last day of our time there. So we'll have to see. I've got 2 more people with questions. Oh, and a third raising their hand. So we have Judy, Charlie, and Karen.
Okay, Judy.
Hi. Thank you, Trisha. That was great. I live in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and we don't have natural gas. And so I came from Michigan with furnaces, and it was a big adjustment to come to heat pumps. And they have gotten a lot better because off in my old heat pump, it changed. I had to go. It went into emergency heat often without me knowing about it because it couldn't handle it when it got down to temperatures which are unbelievable. You wouldn't think would happen, but we've gotten snow and temperatures in the teens and single digits. So, but my new heat pump that I just have is much better, and I got a tax credit for it. So it's much better. And the cool